Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. What's up, traders? What's it going on? Welcome back and happy hump day, my favorite day of the week. Before we dive into it, I need everybody, and I mean everybody, hit me with a big old good morning. If you guys are inside of chat, and as always, if you're feeling up to it, go ahead and open the mic in the Zoom. Shout good morning. We'll start jamming.
Good morning.
Julie, good morning.
Good morning.
Wow, Corey, that was creepy, man. Morning, dude.
What's up?
What's up, buddy? What's up, everybody else? Andy, Chelsea, Jonathan, Steve, and everybody else inside of chat. Welcome back. Happy hump day. Let's dive into it. Let's talk about what we got going on for today and get you guys prepared. We got a few things to discuss today. As always, the spine to Qs. We'll talk about what we got going on there. I think we may have some opportunity today on Tesla. Maybe not today, but at some point this week. I think we could have some opportunity there. We'll discuss that. We'll take a look at Square, SQ, and then Boeing, ticker BA as well. So if there's any other stocks on your watch list that you want to have reviewed, go ahead and have those typed up inside of the Market Mastery chat room. We'll definitely take a look at those, and we'll definitely break those down. All right, but let's take a look at the good old economic calendar and see what we got going on for today. So we got some key data set to be released here at 10 a.m. That's going to be non-farm payrolls annual revision. Okay, that's of high importance. Definitely the type of data that could be a market mover. So be very, very mindful of that. 10 a.m. today, we do have some key data being released. All right, after 10 a.m., we are in the clear until 2 o'clock. Right, so here at 2 p.m. Eastern, we do have FOMC minutes. Don't really expect that to be a real big market mover, but again, it's of high importance. It's key data, and it could move the market, right? So go ahead and be mindful of that as well. Here at 2 o'clock p.m. this afternoon, you do have FOMC minutes being released, right? So 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., you got some key significant data that could be a market mover, all right? Other than that, we're good to go, guys. So not really a fan of where we're at. I think Corey mentioned the same thing, was just like not really a fan of where we are in the market. And I agree, I'm not really a fan of where we're going to be opening on up. But it comes back down to that overhead gap that we were looking at yesterday, right? So really nothing's changed from yesterday into today. We got a couple different lower zones we'll definitely be analyzing this morning, but that overhead gap, it doesn't change, okay? It's between 560.53 and 562.11. And we know how to trade off the gaps, right? We built multiple plans yesterday off the gap level, right? And one of those plans played out where we actually saw a short setup off the bottom into that gap, right? And so we definitely want to be looking at this overhead gap again for today. So game plan number one here on the SPY is going to be, can we break inside the gap? Right? If we can break inside this gap and simply just hold the lower end of support, we can get long for that gap fill long setup up to that 562.11. If we ever see the SPY come up and fill the gap today at 562.11, I would be looking for a gap fill rejection to the short side. right? And then lastly, if we attempt to break inside this gap, but we cannot actually hold above it like we saw yesterday, I would be looking to get short again, expecting to see a little bit more downside here today if we fail to actually break inside this gap and hold that lower end as support, right? So really just 3 plans for today, right? Plan number 1 is the gap fill long opportunity, right? Game plan 2 is going to be the gap fill short, expecting some downside if we fill that gap today and get rejected. And then game plan at number 3 is going to be if we fail to break inside that gap and break above that 560.53. If that takes place, that's going to be the short opportunity for today. And that was the same plan that we had yesterday. And that could play out again today, guys. So it really just comes down to what is the SPY going to do at this 560.53 level, the bottom end of that gap, and we'll just go from there. The last thing that I want you guys to do is just go ahead and run an uptrend here on the SPY, back into Friday's low of day, go ahead and connect Monday's low of day, and then go ahead and connect yesterday's low of day as well. You can see that over the past 3 days, we've been grinding this uptrend. Here in pre-market, we are still grinding this uptrend. So keep that area on watch. We do have uptrend support. So as long as we continue to hold that trend line, we could expect to see some upside, right? Because we are on the bullish side of that uptrend. But if we ever see the trend line crack, we would be going from the bullish side to the bearish side. And this is where sellers could really start to step on in, and we could see a nice drop on off today if we ever see a crack of this multi-day uptrend. So keep that on watch as well, guys. All right. Other than that, I'm going to show you where I found some of those lower zones. Again, pretty much the same zones as we had yesterday. And so your first daily zone of support is down between 556.80 to 557.36, right? And then below that zone, your next lower zone of support is all the way back down between 554.84 to 555.28, okay? So if we do ever see the SPY, for example, setting up to the short side where it comes up to that 560.53, fails to break above it, gets rejected, and we crack that uptrend, that would be a short opportunity. And where would we look to play the SPY short to? Our first daily zone of support. Again, that's between 556.80 to 557.36. And then if we fall below that level, we would expect to see it come down a little bit lower into our next key zone of support, which is going to be down here between 554.84 to 555.29. You're on the spot. All right. So we're all set, ready to rock and roll. It's a simple day, guys. Really simple day. We're just looking to see what opportunities present themselves up against this this daily gap here on the spot, and we'll go from there. Here with QQQ, let's go ahead and break this down, ladies and gentlemen. All right. First thing that I want to do is go ahead and mark up Friday. Was it Friday? No, it was Monday's high a day and Monday's close. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and mark that up with a little zone. But what I've done is I actually took a little blue line because the high a day and the close is literally within like 3 cents. So I went ahead and just put a little line there as a reference at 481.28. Drilled down into a 5-minute time frame. Just looked at how price moved over the past 2-3 days, and I created a zone using that line as a reference. So what I've been able to do is come in here and actually create a pretty nice tight zone around a lot of the support resistance that we've seen here over the past 2 or 3 sessions. Okay, so that zone that I'm looking at here today, I'm going to label that my line in the sand. Okay, and I have this zone right here between 481.27 to 481.42. That's my make or break for today here on QQQ. Okay. So if we can get above that zone intraday and hold it, I'm looking to play the Qs long back up into this daily zone of resistance between 482.96 to 483.34. But if the Qs fail to break through that area of resistance, I would be willing to play the Q short into this next daily zone of support, which is down here between 478.20 to 478.70. All right, so really just comes down to what are the Qs going to do at this 481.27 to 481.42 level. We break above it, we hold above it. We're looking to get long back up into yesterday's high a day and that daily zone of resistance, right? We fail to break above it. We get rejected. Looking to get short back down into yesterday's lows, which is also up against that daily zone of support. Really just comes down to what are the Qs going to do off that line in the sand. And so far, it's respecting it really nice here in pre-market. So something's bound to take place and something's bound to set up off that line in the sand. All right, so with the Qs, that's where I'm focused. If we break and hold that level, I played the Qs long up into yesterday's high a day, right? If we get rejected off that level and see the short setting up, I simply look to get short into yesterday's lows. They're on QQQ. Simple, simple stuff. I like when it's simple. All right, so you guys are all set, ready to rock and roll here on the SPY, and you guys are all set, ready to rock here on QQQ as well. What else we got going on today? Maybe Square, ticker S to the Q, right? So looking to see if we get a second day of downside continuation on SQ. So what have we seen over the past 2 days? Monday, we came up, filled this daily gap. Yesterday, we had a strong rejection off the top end of the gap, right? So if we can see a slight gap down today below yesterday's low of day and close, what could we see? We could see a quick push on up into yesterday's low and close, get rejected, and then see the second leg down today, right? And it looked to play this continuation, to the downside. Where do I think we can go? Well, I think it's realistic that we see SQ kind of get back down into this region here, up against that 50% retracement. It puts you back down into a pretty nice area of daily support, right around that 50% retracement here on SQ. That's at like 61.10. So ideally, what I want to see is a slight gap down today, push up into yesterday's close and low of day, get rejected off that 64.83, flip red, and then see that second day of downside continuation. Since we had a pretty strong rejection off that daily gap yesterday, very possible that we see some momentum follow through and we see another red day today here on SQ. All right, and again, looking to play the short down into the low 61s. Okay, so that's SQ. Other than that, maybe Boeing, ticker BA, for a gap fill bounce, right? So if BA can come down inside of this daily gap at 168.52 and hold it as intraday support, I would entertain a gap fill bounce here on Boeing, right? Maybe back up to like 170. We can catch about $1.50 to the upside here on ticker BA. So that's where my head is here. If we do see Boeing able to come down to that 168.52, I would be interested in possibly taking this for a quick day trade for about $1.50 of upside for a gap fill bounce opportunity back up to that 170. So let's keep BA on watch down around this 168.52 for the possible gap fill bounce. Okay, Square, we just want to see a open, ideally below that 64.83. Simply come up, back test that level as resistance, get rejected, flip red on the day. And I do expect to see a nice little move down into, again, the low 61s on SQ. And that's really all I'm watching today, guys, right? We got great game plans on the SPY and the Qs. I think today's going to be a really nice day in the market. I personally like where we're at. I mean, I'm not a fan, but I'm not really opposed to it, I guess. I definitely see some opportunity. We're definitely sitting at some pretty key areas. And I think there could be some opportunity at the start of the day with the SPY and the Qs. But be mindful, we got some key data at 10 o'clock, so it may just be slower leading up to a lot of that key data at 10. All right, but other than that, you guys are all set with Boeing, ticker BA, maybe for the gap fill bounce, and then SQ for the second day of downside continuation, if we can get that open below that 64.83 region. Okay, if there's anything else you guys want to take a look at, now's the time. We got like 15 minutes until the market opens. Didn't really see anything else that really stood out to me as far as like any kind of great opportunity for day trades today. The only other thing that I personally do see coming on up, which I don't think it's going to play out today, but I think maybe by the end of the week or early next week, Tesla may be setting up for us. And really, I just want to watch Tesla back down around this like 214.68 to 216.21 level. So if we ever see Tesla getting back down close to that daily zone of very strong support, Definitely want to keep this one on high watch because there is some great potential to get long on Tesla down at that key lower zone of support for the next leg up to maybe come up and fill this daily gap here on Tesla. So keep Tesla on high watch today, the rest of this week, and maybe into next week as well. We come down to this 214.68 to 216.21 level, and we do indeed stay above it as support, and we start to see a daily higher low set in. I want to be looking to get long at that level of support on Tesla. I want to start targeting a gap fill to the upside. So let's keep that on watch too, guys. But other than that, that's what I got for you today, guys. We're all set with the SPY and the Qs. And then we may have some opportunity today on SQ and BA. Andy, what's up? Good morning, man. So what else are you guys looking at? $13 minutes, guys. Come on. I'm sure someone's got something. Another stock out there you think looks good? All right, maybe you got a couple of different areas on the SPY and the Qs that you're like, hey, are these pretty valid? Get me involved, guys. We got 13 minutes till market open here.
I have one.
What's up, Julie?
You have 56.80 to 57.36 on the SPY, and mine was just a little bigger than yours.
Which one are we talking about here?
On 56.80 to 556.80 to 557.36.
36?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm looking at here are these two candles that stand out to me. So the first candle that stands out to me is that candle high a day right here, because that was that high a day before we saw that nice rejection, that gap down, and that pretty sizable drop over the next 2 days. So that candle high a day stands out to me. And I'm looking at yesterday's low of day here as well. So I'm really just utilizing these 2 points to start my zone. And so when I throw my zone up, I'm really just starting with that low a day from yesterday, dragging it into that candle high, because that to me appears to be a pretty significant candle, right? We pushed on up, had a strong rejection, followed by a gap down and a dump. So that stands out to me. And so when I create a zone based on those 2 points, and I look left, I capture other touch points as well. We have that high day rejection. We have that gap up open and low of day. Then we have this low of day here before that nice push on up. Came down here, hit a low of day and bounced. We also closed in that level. And then we back tested it here on that July 23rd candle. So I have initially those 2 points that stand out to me to create the zone. But when I look left, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more different valid touch points in that zone. And you could make it a little bit bigger. I mean, technically speaking, I could run it down here, but I wouldn't want to drag the top end up any higher than yesterday's low of day. So that's where the top end would at least be, is this 557.35. I wouldn't touch the top end, but I could justify bringing my zone down a little bit lower, and it could be a much bigger zone, but still be a valid zone. I mean, I can get it all the way down towards around 556.25, and that's still a pretty valid zone when I look at it. Was that pretty close to where yours was?
Yeah, that's where mine was, 556.24 to 557 on with my eyeballs. It was 29, but it's pretty close.
It's pretty close. Yeah, so your top end was dialed in. I can see why you would have yours down around that 556.26. But that leaves us a pretty big zone of about $1. That's a pretty big zone. If that's the zone and we can't touch it, that's the zone we can't touch it. But if we can justify tightening that zone up and it still be valid, let's tighten that zone up, right? A lot of things can happen in that dollar zone. But if we can tighten that up strategically to say 40 or 50 cents, it makes it a lot easier to look for certain types of trades off that zone. So I'm going to go ahead and start tightening this up. And I'm going to run it up into, ideally, this candle high here. And that puts my lower zone at that 556.74. And by doing that, I really only lose 2 touch points. So these 2 touch points here, I really just lose those. But I still gain all these other pretty valid touch points. And now I have my zone just a little bit tighter to make it a little bit more realistic to see certain types of trades off that zone here intraday.
Okay, thank you.
And then we have this lower one down here as well. Between 554.84 to 555.29.
Yeah, I have that one too, pretty much. So I was just wondering about that middle zone.
That middle one. Yep, I would just say, like, anytime you notice your zone is bigger than, I don't know, my kind of rule of thumb is like 50 cents. If my zone's bigger than 50 cents, I try to see, can I strategically tighten up the zone without taking away its validity? Like how significant it is. And if I can tighten it up and it still be valid, phenomenal, great. If not, and my zone's $1, then shit, my zone's $1, and I'll just have to be a little bit more patient and kind of tread lightly when the stock enters that zone because it's huge. It's $1. Anything could happen. But yeah, we're on the same page.
Nice, thanks. And I like that range you gave me. That helps a lot.
Yeah, like, you know, over 50 cents, try to tighten it up. And if you're like, I just can't, my zone's $1.20 because that's what I see, then your zone's $1.20, that's what you see. I just prefer tighter zones. It's easier to see trades and trade off tighter zones versus a full dollar zone, for example. So, I mean, what's this zone right here? When it's all said and done, we still have about, it was at 25.50. That's about 65, 70 cents in duration. So it's still a pretty wide zone, but that's the zone. And that's as much as I can tighten it up. Because if I try and tighten it up any further, then I really lose that high a day from July 23rd. And that's a very significant candle that clearly stands out to me. So I really want to make sure I'm capturing that high a day as well, because that was a very significant touch point before that drop on off, followed by that gap down dump. So that really stands out to me. I don't want to lose that touch point. And then yesterday's low of day really stands out to me as well. So that's just where the zone has to be. If I can get my freaking zone to go back to where it was. There it is. Cool. All right, what do we got? SMFL. Yeah, buddy. Let's go look at SMFL, Mr. Steve. See what we got here. Already charted this thing before, it looks like. So, first area that, you know, clearly stands out to me, and I'm sure this area clearly stood out to you as well, it's just going to be this zone up against all these previous lows. We cracked below the zone, retested it, dropped, retested it, dropped. So that's going to be a pretty significant level here on SMFL. It's going to be this zone between 256 to 274. Okay, where are we at right now? We're already smacking that level as intraday resistance. So, game plan one, we can't break through it and the stock's shortable. You could look to short it back down. Here's the other thing too. A lot of these top gaining stocks the past couple of days, from what I've seen, is they all fade and fall, ended up closing red for the most part on the day. There's just not a lot of, you know, upside action and follow through when the market opens on some of these. A lot of them showed a lot of weakness the past couple of days from what I've noticed. So again, just looking at that, and then you have that very key significant zone of daily resistance between 256 and 274, that if we can't break through it, we can see some downside back down to $2, and then from there, potentially back down into the 167s. But let's say that we do break that zone, hold above it as support, and we see more upside. Now, how much higher could we go here? I would look at this candle's high a day. And the reason why I would look at that candle high a day from July 23rd is we had a slight gap up at 210. We spiked all the way to 331 and then just got rejected hard on a nice increase in volume that day compared to the average. So that high a day stands out to me for those reasons. And when you look left, you can see that it's been validated multiple times in the past as areas of support resistance based on some of these lows of day and some of these highs of day. So I would say that if we get a break and hold above that zone, realistically, you could see a move up to like 330, 331 on SMFL. So again, maybe be able to capture about, 60, 70 cents to the upside. If we do break that zone and hold it as support, I'd say you have room to 330. But if we fail to break that daily zone, right, there's going to be some great downside opportunity here on SMFL. Morning, Spencer. Interesting. All right, anything else before market opens? We got about 2 minutes, baby. Not about, right at 2 minutes. Excited for today, guys. I am. So really watching the SPY up at this 560.53 level. Okay, 560.53. And we'll go from there.
So Josh, so in Qs, would you say that it was the same thing with the zone, like the candle from July 23rd? That's the one that actually caught your attention, so you don't want to lose it?
July 23rd, July 23rd. So this candle right here, July 23rd.
482.96 to 483.
Say that again.
So because you mark a zone on 482.96 to 483.34.
Correct.
So would you say that that big candle, red candle, is it about the same thing as SPY?
Yes, it is. That candle definitely stands out to me. 100%. That's a very significant candle where we come up, we back test some resistance, we hit that 20 EMA, get rejected hard that day, have a pretty nice red close, and then we gap down and dump the next day. So this entire day, that stands out to me. Specifically, the candle's high a day. But the main difference between the SPY and the Qs is I can utilize this candle's high a day on the SPY and create a pretty tight zone with multiple touch points, like to the penny. When I look at the Qs, if I were to readjust my zone to capture that high a day, it's too big of a zone, right? It's literally like a $2 zone. It's massive. But I like that candle. That candle stands out to me on the Qs, just like the SPY, but I need to tighten my zone up, right? While still being able to capture some of that candle, but still make sure that my zone's tight and valid. So I can justify bringing it down into this 483.34 level, right? So I capture that high a day, right? We have that low a day when we bounced, and we got back below that level here and hit it as resistance. Now, what I can do is I can go down to a 5-minute time frame, and I can look at this candle right here from June 28th, and I can look at this day's candle as well from July 23rd, and see how we moved around the daily zone that I've identified. Even though we spiked through that zone, right? Was there good price development and good price action around that zone that day on that daily candle that stands out to me? So that's what, July 23rd. Let's go on the cues. Let's go back to July 23rd here. Make sure we're talking the right zone. Yep. We're going all the way back to July 23rd.
Right there.
Right here. And so that was the day that we had that wick through, and then we dropped and then gapped down the next day. So that's this day right here. So July 23rd, that red candle that you're discussing, this is the intraday chart for that day. Does anything stand out to you at that zone? It does. I mean, to me, we have all this initial resistance off that zone.
Before and after it
We dropped, we broke it, we tried to hold it as support, we failed, right? So I can see, like, yeah, on the daily, I would want to justify having my zone way up here, right? To get that, you know, that high day from that candle. But I'm like, that's a $2 zone. That's too big. Let me go ahead and readjust it and make it as tight as possible while still making sure it's significant. Then what I need to do is go look at that day on a lower time frame and look at this day on a lower time frame just to see how price moved around that zone, right? To help build more significance with it, build more conviction around it. So I can already see, you know, really, really nice price movement around that zone on July 23rd, right? Intraday. Looks pretty nice. The day before, grinded that level, couldn't break above it. Right. And so what I want to do is to go back into those lower time frames on those days where I don't really have a lot of visibility on the daily and see what it looks like on a lower time frame. So the next one would be June 28th. And so I want to go all the way back to June 28th now. And here we are, June 28th, that other candle where we had that big upper shadow through it. But I like how price kind of reacted. We came down to that zone and we bounced. So we see that it was respected. The previous day is high a day. We came down and bounced off that level on June 28th. We can see how we came up into this level here, hit it as resistance several times, broke it, held it as support, then pushed higher. So now just being in a 5-minute time frame, looking at those 2 or 3 days on a lower time frame, right? I see really good price development and price movement around that zone. So I'm going to keep that zone nice and tight because I can justify keeping it nice and tight.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Scott, you're beautiful. I appreciate those hedge pressures and alerts chat for everybody.
We'll go get those here in a sec. But yes, Scott, appreciate you, man. All right, we're good. We get some hedgies. I mean, you already got them. I don't got them. I want them. We go all the way back to today. Where are we at? Come on. There we go.
Good morning, everyone.
Mr. Matt, what's up, buddy? Good morning.
What's up, Matt?
Everybody ready for Happy Wednesday?
For what?
He said Wedge Wednesday.
Oh, Wedge Wednesday. I thought you said Wacky Wednesday. I'm like, it's hump day, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
Hey, you got little kids. It's Wacky Wednesday.
Wacky Wednesday. Or it's Get Whacked Wednesday with my kids.
You got to read that Dr. Seuss book.
They're abusive. All right, we got a 559 weekly hedge pressure on the SPY. 559 weekly.
And good looks, Angel. You're still in a pre-market rundown mode.
Appreciate you. Go grab QQQ.